everyone. My name is Jonathon Silva, and welcome into another episode of our Excel to Power BI series here for YouTube. Now, for this video, what I wanted to focus on was how we can migrate our data model that we built in Excel all the way into Power BI, and then in Power BI, we can add on to it. We can create a calculated measure and some very quick, very simple, but very rich visuals on that data model. So let's go ahead and take a look at our model first in Excel, and then we'll go through the process on how we can go ahead and have that migrate over. So here's our Power Query inside of Excel. And the query that I'm using for this demonstration is a list of banks that have failed inside of the United States over a 20-year period. And for this list, what I want to do is take everything in here and then bring that into Power BI, where I can go ahead and make some amazing visuals with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close out this Power Query editor and then open up our data model in Excel just to take a peek at everything we've had already created for us here. I'm going to select Manage Data Model on the Data tab. And when I select Manage Data Model, I can open up our data model here inside of Excel to take a look at everything we have available to us. Now remember, the data model that lives inside of Excel, or otherwise known as PowerPivot, is this amazing feature that we can leverage if we have very vast quantities of data that we want to use inside of Excel. And with this, we can bring in data that exceeds that Excel row limit of just over 1,040,000 rows. In this case, our demonstration, we don't quite have that many. It's a much smaller data set here for the purpose of this demonstration, but I did want to make sure that everyone was aware that if we wanted to bring in 3, 4, 5, 10 million rows of data, we could do that here inside of PowerPivot, otherwise known as the data model for Excel. And so here we have our query that we're using for our data model. We also have a date table that I built here inside of the data model. And it's an amazing, very easy to use feature for PowerPivot to create a date table. All you need to do is come over here to your Design tab at the top, select Date Table, and select New. That's it. That's all you need to do. And then when you select that button, you get all of these columns automatically created for you. And then from there, what we can do is we can go back to our Home tab at the top, and we can choose the diagram view to create a relationship between the two tables. In this case, the relationship that I developed between these two tables was on my date column, on my date table, and the closing date column on my bank list table, or my failed bank list table. And so from there, we are now allowing our two tables to communicate in order to build out a relationship. So if I wanted to build a pivot table or a pivot chart, looking at the data here, I could very easily do that. But for this demo, we're going to go ahead and do that all in Power BI. So let's go ahead and start to migrate this entire process into Power BI. Now, the first thing I want to do is obviously we're going to save this. And then I want to make sure we're closing out this instance of Excel, because if this instance is open, we will not be able to migrate it into Power BI. So I'm going to go ahead and close that as well. And what you'll notice is I have Power BI open in the background already. So now that we're here inside of Power BI, in order to migrate that data model in, what we can do is come over to our File tab at the top. We can select Import, and then we can choose Power Query, Power Pivot, Power View. Now, when we do this, all we need to do is point to that Excel file that has the data model within it to be able to migrate it here into Power BI. And when we do that, I can go ahead and say, I don't want to save anything here in my current report because I don't have anything in there to save. And I'm going to go ahead and select our Excel data model. And then the first thing we'll notice is we have a little bit of a pop-up here letting us know we don't work directly with Excel workbooks, but we know how to get all the useful information to be able to populate any visual. Okay, so we're going to do its best. I have really, every time I've done this, I've never really seen any issues for bringing in any of the contents within those workbooks. Almost every time it should work perfectly for us. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start. And when I do that, I will now be able to bring in everything that we had back in Excel here inside of Power BI. And you can see there our migration was complete. And so we should have everything available to us. If I come over here, we can see our date table right there. If I come into transform data, I can also see our failed bank list as well. So we can go ahead and have that in here to be able to use inside of Power BI. Now, right now, the load was disabled. So all I need to do in this case, if this ever happens to you, just make sure you're doing a right click on that table that didn't come through and select enable load. And so now when I hit close and apply, I will now see that table also populated inside of Power BI here. And so there it is. And if I wanted to look at the relationship that we built back in Excel, all I need to do is come over to our model view and I can see that relationship. Now in this case, because the table, the failed bank list table the load was not enabled originally, I have to recreate that relationship. So all I need to do is come through and reestablish that relationship on those two columns that I was using before. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Everything's ready to go there. We have our automatic cardinality, our one-to-many relationship. Everything's already set up for us with our filtering. And so now, if I wanted to come and populate a visual, I can very easily do that. So say I want to see our banks that failed for each month throughout our entire data set. What I can do is I can come in and I can add in, say, a stacked column chart. If I want to make this nice and big, I can use my drag and drop capability here, make it nice and large. And I can come over here and say, you know what, if I want to see it by month, I can drag in our month into our axis. And then I can take my bank name and drop it into my values. And remember, anytime we have any data here that is not a numerical data type and we drop it into our values, we're going to get some type of aggregation on that column. It's going to be a count, a min, a max, a sum, an average, any of those along the way. So in this case, as I drop my bank name into values, I'm going to get a count of bank name right there. Now, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and create a calculated measure to do that automatically for me so I can tell it exactly how I want that aggregation to occur. But in this case, we could just drop that in there. And now what you'll notice in my visual is I have a blank. I have a blank value in my date table here for our months. So if I wanted to get rid of that, all I need to do is come over to our month in our filter pane. And I can do an advanced filter real quick and choose is not blank. Okay. And so I can apply that filter here. And so we're filtering out anything and only returning anything that is not blank. And there we have it. There we have a way of showcasing our data that we brought in from our data model inside of Excel. And it's actually a quite easy way of being able to translate or transfer all the work you've done back in Excel here into Power BI. So now, as I want to go ahead and have more information in the detailed report of this data, I can go ahead and build some of those amazing visuals that we all know Power BI has to offer for us. Well, thanks for joining me again today. And if you like this video and all of our other videos, please go ahead and drop a like and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next part of our video series as we look to then go full circle from Power BI back into Excel. All right, guys, see you next time.